We got sound and video. Yay, and we are live. Hey, thank you so much for joining us on this Thursday for my Women in Trading and Finance series. I'm Samantha LaDuc, founder of LaDuc Trading, and I am very excited to be able to bring in a guest captain to interview both for this webinar as well as podcast. And I want to just do a little bit of housekeeping before we get into my guest interview. First and foremost, this will be posted to I will show you in just a second. Oh, I'm getting right ahead of it. Okay, so we'll go back. This is my website, LaDuc Trading. I will be posting the video here as well as.
Samantha, are you here?
Oh,
I am here.
that's a webinar I did. Sorry. As well as my YouTube channel, which is LaDuc Trading. You know, pretty inventive there. And I am very excited to do this every Tuesday and Thursday. I have a macro to micro power hour with Jonathan Gibbons on Tuesday. That's very important to kind of understanding market structure, all types of topical themes. And then on Thursday, I kind of mix it up. It could be option flow, it could be treasury issuance, it could be, you know, you name it. Very excited to introduce Miss Izzy, which is very much an honor to find traders out there who are women who are doing this and have a following. Izzy has actually a really nice following on Twitter, and also she's started a website where she is blogging and providing her, you know, particular approach to not only trading, which is trading, you know, technique, if you will, but also psychology. And I was excited because you're young and you've been online for a few years now on Twitter, and just beautiful, bright, and open. You kind of like create this engaging atmosphere where people feel, you know, very comfortable talking with you, encouraged by you. And my whole theme of doing this, you know, webinar series is so that women can see what they can be. And there are so many men in trading and finance. And you and I were just talking, you know, before we hit record, how it has changed dramatically in the last year. We're definitely seeing a lot more women on the stream, and I wanted to just welcome you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Samantha. That was a warm welcome. I appreciate that.
So,
Thank you for having me on your stream too. I know you're busy, and there's lots of options out there, right, for people you want to interview. So I appreciate you having me on here.
oh, I definitely want to introduce you because, like I said, you have a following because you do this, you know, technical approach to market trading, but you also have a lot of trader psychology built into it, and it seems like you connect with, you know, that young new trader that needs guidance. And I'm an older trader, but I mean, at least I'm a woman, so they can see me too, and and I'm not intimidated by what I don't know. So I like also to kind of bring guests on so I can learn. So tell me, tell us a little bit about you. How'd you get into this biz, and what's your situation? What's your story?
Sure. So, I mean, I'm a little bit older than you probably think I am. I'm not that young. I started trading back in just shortly after 2008. That was my first year in college. I was still kind of speculating the markets when I was in high school. I always had a pretty big interest for trading, looking into investing outside, like as soon as I had started school. And of course, that was probably a good time to start because it was in the news a lot. It was in the media. I was waiting to turn 18 because I couldn't trade yet. So when I finally turned 18, I opened up my account, and I was just mostly speculating crude companies because where I'm located is mostly oil and gas. So that's how I started trading. People usually assume I started trading off technicals, but I did not. I initially began trading off seasonality. So I was trading the crude markets, the gold markets, and slowly began to diverge onto technical analysis, kind of how that sort of started into play. But I also had a part-time job in retail in tech sales for Apple. So that's where that's where I really wanted to start investing. That was kind of the very beginning of Apple's huge surge, right? So I really wanted to see where these tech names would go, and I started looking into companies like Nvidia, AMD, those sorts of companies back then. Being Canadian too, I had the advantage of trading the cannabis stocks super early, way back when they were still OTC stocks before they even hit any of the major exchanges. This is probably back in 2013, 2014. Um, Mostly stuck with Canadian companies when I first started, though, I will be honest there. And from there, I made a Twitter account in 2014 or 2013. I think I had it in 2013. I just never really posted on there. And I realized that there was this community of traders. And I was like, oh, and at that point I already had been trading for 6, 7 years. So I was like, this is great. Let me share my ideas on here.
Because
I
trading can
had,
be quote unquote lonely, right? I mean, we're really
yeah.
isolated, we're inside of our heads.
Hmm.
And then to actually be able to communicate that and get engagement from that, it can help us be more accountable, can help us be sharper and better
Exactly.
traders.
Because then your people are watching you, right? They're seeing what
Yep.
you're doing. And I always think that we're our biggest critics. Like I do believe that, right? So, but it's nice to have a second set of eyes too, right? Like not just I'm always open to learning and growing too. So I'm open to seeing how other people trade their strategies, what kind of different approaches people have to trading, and then that whole psychology aspect to it too. That's something I'm really, really big on because I do know that sometimes, like I said, like you really can be your worst enemy when it comes to trading, right? Like your mind block, the barrier that can build can really prevent you from growing. And I think one of my, and I always say this in a podcast I did recently, um, who you are as a person really reflects who you become as a trader. Like I feel like your personality, so, and it's not that some people say some people were born to trade. I do believe that to an extent based on specific, strengths and weaknesses. If you have high attention to detail, if you're kind of patient, really disciplined, those are all good attributes to have to being a good trader. But something I lacked growing up was confidence. I really was not confident. I was really shy. I was very, very, very much introverted, believe it or not. English was my second language, so I kind of struggled in the beginning of school, right? Elementary school, I was in ESL and I was trying to communicate to the other kids in my class. So that's something I've always been kind of nervous about. Even in class, if there was a question that the teacher asked, I'd always kind of hesitate to raise my hand and those sorts of things, or to make new friends. Because and I was moving schools a lot. I moved probably to 5 different elementary schools when I was younger, as my parents tried to settle down. So there's 7 kids in my family.
Woo!
Another reason why I really want to be there's my dad has 8 sisters. He's the first boy after 8 sisters. I've got 4 sisters, 2 brothers, so 5 girls in my family. I really want to have. I'm eldest, right? So I really want to put out a good image for females, my younger siblings,
Awesome.
and I felt this was a great way to do it. But the one thing I always struggled with was, okay, I need to be more confident in my trades. I was finding so many great setups, but I wasn't executing. I would just, and then it got to a point where I felt like I was putting out all these wonderful ideas to a community now, but this was the first time where everyone's like, Izzy, this is great, great call. And I was like, oh, that really was a great call. Well, why didn't I take it? Right. So I feel like in a way, Twitter actually did help me gain a bit more confidence in my trades. And that maybe that's what I needed. Besides having the community, it actually helped me grow a little bit too, because I started to really see the interactions and see it on screen. And I was like, okay, well, this is good. And I think your character really plays a huge part. So I'm naturally really friendly. I'm pretty approachable. So I don't mind answering and helping if I can, where I can, and making new friends, right? So
That's interesting. It just occurred to me that I had one because I've been on Twitter and I don't tweet so busily because I'm running a live trading room and doing operations and my own business and clients. But I am on there because I really do want to make big calls and have that engagement. It actually forces me to really be convicted, right?
yes.
Because I know that people are watching. But it's for some, like you said, it builds confidence. For others, they already have the ego, and it's really kind of the shoulder pat. And there's a lot of bravado, when I first came into Twitter, it was extremely hard to be heard. Extremely hard.
I
As a
can't
woman,
imagine.
as a woman coming in, it was like, okay, you're talked over, talked down, trolled, harassed. I mean, whatever. But it was really, I didn't let the barking dogs distract me from the goal, and I ended up creating a hell of a community of incredibly bright, engaged Twitter users, from macro, which is bigger intellectual kind of topical themes, which I need to understand, to tactical setups, what's moving, right, and why, and how folks are trading it. So I really like that. I use it in the same way for confidence building, and I know a lot of folks that use it as their core way to build their business, and others who just love the bravado and the sound, of the clanging the bell. It's like a team kind of sport where the louder they are, the bigger the following they have. Not necessarily sometimes for substance, but it fits their personality. They're
Right.
loud, and you don't seem to live out loud. I definitely don't live out loud.
No,
That.
I'm very much like, I don't really seem like I'm quiet, but I really am. I've never been the type to, I don't drink, I've never partied, I've never done any of that stuff, right? Like I've always been really, really quiet. So, and I feel like it's, you can have fun with it still, right?
Oh my
Like,
gosh, but you're very much, really taken to heart that older child responsibility and birth order too. So this is
yeah, I feel like
good
I've
for
already had
you.
kids. I don't have kids, but I feel like I've had kids, right? Like I've done all those duties. I've babysat, I've changed diapers, I've made bottles, I've done all that sort of stuff. I used to drive my siblings to 3 different schools every morning.
Yeah.
Lots of responsibilities at a really young age. And I think that's why people are always like, Izzy, how are you so patient? How are you so disciplined? It's like, well, I probably just learned that from childhood, right? Like that was
No,
my
from
upbringing.
parenting early.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a large family. Well, I am very glad to hear, because that's what, and everyone's different culturally, how they're brought up, and what instills in them the confidence or lack thereof. We're all trying to compensate for something. So this is really a good avenue for you. You love trading and then teaching about trading. I really love analyzing. This is just the puzzle of, trying to find the edge, and then the edge keeps moving. And I don't get frustrated by that. I just find it all to be the game. Like, this is my board game. And
Yep.
I want to see where to put the pieces, because the edge is moving. It's never the same. That really, to me, it feeds my brain. Always feeds me in, my curiosity. So, and you're doing it as well. I mean, you're definitely. Tell me a little bit about how you trade, like what your style is, because I know there's the community that you've built, obviously, and the trading psychology is a big part of it. But how do you trade? Like, what is your comfort zone?
I have a different approach. So kind of like what you were saying with conviction, really being strong in what you're thinking and how a community really helps with that. That tremendously helped me back in January, February, March, when the market was going on a complete slump. That was when I was the most profitable, because I had a strong conviction in crude stocks. And that was my background, right? So that's where I started. And I feel like where you start is always kind of where you end, right? So I had a really good understanding of that market and how it trades and how it works. And I feel like a lot, because it's been in such a downtrend, that no one was really convinced of this being in an up, or even trying to reverse back into that uptrend, just because it's been
You're talking about
constantly.
energy stocks in particular, the first part of this year.
Yeah, so
Okay.
mostly XLE and XOM, kind
Yep.
of just sticking
Yep.
with the ETFs, but
Yep.
I did go long CPE, and that
Yep.
was a really, really great swing trade. We played that in my group from, I think, $10, $12 all the way up, and that
Yep.
still looks great. So that was a huge
Ditto.
hedge for us, and it was a big win for me, right? So that's one of my approaches. I am a technical trader. I did see the beautiful chart, the nice pattern, and I like starting on a larger scale, because I always want to see the bigger picture. So I'll look at a quarterly chart, a monthly chart, the weekly chart, and then I'll get to the daily. Like the daily is usually my last resort if I'm looking to swing something. Um, and then I'll look at the flow. So I am a flow trader too. I'll see what kind of, I was noticing a ton a ton of flow activity coming into XOM back in December,
So do you
back
mean
in
that by
January.
option activity
Yeah, whether
specifically?
it's
Okay.
options or block buys or even inside buying or insiders buying, institutional
Okay.
buying. And
Yep.
I knew that there was, so I have a thing on Twitter called Cash Chart Catalyst. So cash is king, right? That's the most
Mhm.
important thing. So if there's a flow of cash coming in, that's great. And chart, if it has a great chart, that's perfect. Catalyst, okay, I need a catalyst. So my catalyst with crude was obviously OPEC being a catalyst all the time, but XOM had their investors day. And I'm like, okay, well, we've got time to play this into that day. And that's literally when it sold off, was the day that was when we finally took our profits and we were done with it. So there's a few different things I have, and I'm a seasonality trader too. So I'll trade based off earnings reports that are upcoming. So I went long Facebook, Amazon, all those stocks back end of March for the run up. And I was same thing. I noticed a
Oh my God.
massive monthly flag on Facebook, and it just broke out of it. So
Yep.
that flag break, I got my flag break, right? So different variations of how I trade, and it all depends on if I'm swing trading, if I'm day trading. I recently learned this year, and I thank Sandman for this. Sandman's one of my
Yep. I know who.
mentors.
Yep.
He's great. You should all give him a follow on Twitter. I joined the Benzinga chat room and I started contributing in there last year when I had more time, because I actually work in energy trading. That's my profession. So I'm in power trading, and I was able to get more time to obviously do some day trades, right? So being at home really helped with that. And I discovered that I'm actually a pretty decent momentum trader too. So uh, figuring out all the, whether it's a 1 minute, 2 minute, 5 minute, 15 minute breakout, just my same approach for how I trade anything else, it
Oh my
really
God,
reflects on.
this is so similar because I say the same thing. Patterns are recurring on any time frame, whether it's a 15-minute, a daily, an hour, a weekly. There are similar patterns, and you can trade from the inside out or look big picture down. But absolutely, it's funny, we do the same thing, and the same timing with the energy rotation. You know,
Awesome.
the exact same timing. And then I literally on my YouTube channel, this is so funny. March 31st, I'm like, it's time for a NASDAQ and all things ARC, run up for the next few weeks. So now that earnings are out of the way, soon, Amazon now, we got big tech out of the way. What do you see now for rotation? Because we had obviously the big, NASDAQ move of late from March 31st, and energy is now caught in another bid. And it's funny you say CPE because I trade that like flat oil, so it was extremely bullish as well. So it's very similar approaches on time frame and also the sector rotation, but for very different reasons. I use intermarket analysis and a lot of macro, so I'm
Okay.
very much a yield. Interest rates is very much my thing. And then, of course, timing it with lots of intermarket analysis and the value, the growth, the value rotation. That's my thing. And then timing volatility. So, what do you see now in the next, few weeks, if you will, to get through
Well,
earnings?
I was kind of thinking that this week would be the tech shine week. Like this is when tech names will shine, and then when we hit some volatility, probably see a bit more rotation back into some consumer names too. Consumers have some really nice looking charts right now on their wider time frame. So I did trade Coke and Pepsi shortly after I was selling crude. That's kind of where I was rotating back into, but. I think those ones on a larger scale, they can today is a great example. When the market did what it did, we were like, well, PG and well, MO before that news that happened, but
Yeah.
MO and Coke and Pepsi and all those other sort of consumer names, they're usually a great hedge against the market on days like this. So I'm thinking if we do get that correction on SPY here, and you've been trading for a while, so like historically May is usually bearish month, right? Like heading into like mid-May, things start to
Mid
sell
May.
off.
Yep. And
And one of
sometimes
the
they front run it.
Yes, so sometimes it takes a bit. I find like maybe that's why I'm not really too bearish yet. I think that there's
Hmm.
maybe still another 1 to 3 weeks until we start seeing it. I find it's usually the May long
Funny.
weekend, right? And then we'll start seeing that shift. But crude looks great right now too. So I'm kind of torn between crude and consumers and actually a little bit of retail. Retail stocks have yet to report. They're not reporting till I think month end, and even some are reporting in June. So I've been looking at some of the retail names too, and those have been doing the complete opposite of the market, right? So,
Yeah.
and
Firm. Yeah.
this is kind of silly, but I've noticed that those new meme stocks, so whether it's GME or AMC, which I've never traded, but I've noticed they're correlated with SPY now. So whenever those stocks are flashing green, it's usually an indication for me now that okay, well maybe the market is going to have a red day, right? Because they seem to run up when everything else is
Inverse.
kind of running down, and they are technically retail names. So, and I've been finding other names like Macy's and um other retail names that are kind of been falling in that same segment as them, which is kind of strange, but almost anything that was heavily shorted. And I know this is kind of far-fetched, but I love the airline stocks.
Oh
I
yeah.
really think that those have some room to go. And I feel like honestly, COVID's already priced in. I don't really think that I went long Delta and all those names when last year, right? Like when I was like, I feel like this is priced in. Like how low can they go, right? And if anyone read my blog for this week, I was long banks. Banks are a great hedge for the market, right? Like
Well, they're
that's
also a yield play. So
yes.
when we have a yield spike like we had the past few days, then and months, basically they're a fabulous play on that as well. So
Yeah, and Sandman was talking about that this morning with the 10-year, right? And he had mentioned something in my chat this morning about um how they're discounting all those things right now for so it's kind of scary to think of that, right? But if when you're looking at stocks like I've traded Bank of America is usually my go-to. They've still got a lot more room to go on their wider time frames.
oh
Almost
yeah.
everything else has filled up their gaps from their sell-off, but the only ones that really haven't are crude stocks,
Yep,
banks,
energy. Yep.
and the airlines. Like it's really just down to those three, and some consumers still have some room. So that's kind of it's a toss between those three, but I think they alternate, and some of them are quite correlated. So energy was up today, so were banks, right? So some of the sectors they run together, I find. So kind of the two that I lean the most towards, but I would be
When you say the
interested to
two
see
that
if
you lean the
retail
most towards, you talked about energy, of course, and then did you say consumer or retail? That you,
for the next sector, I'm thinking maybe a little bit of retail because consumers have already started to run. I'm still long consumers, but that's because I was kind of buying consumers back in February, March. But and those ones are most of them have reported now, so all of them are kind of de-risked for reporting earnings. And well, if you're looking at Coke or Pepsi or any of those names, they've still got some room to go. But retail names, actually, I like that they have earnings coming up, and I'm thinking some of those can start seeing the next sort of run. I don't really see them as the next sector to kind of swing long, but maybe just a short term shift over into those. And long term, I'm really liking banks and energy. That's kind of those are the two, and the airlines, like whether it's Delta, American
yep.
Airlines, United, they all look like they're priced in, I think. But
Yeah, the whole jets sector has been just in digestion mode the past kind of like 2 months, but they haven't fallen. And retail, the XRT is kind of deceiving because it's so heavily weighted with GameStop. It's
yes,
got like 8.5%, which
that's
totally
impacting it.
skews that particular ETF. But because when you look at that, it's like parabolic, like GameStop. So they have to rebalance that at some point, and it will look a little bit different. But yeah, this they have been beautiful trades, especially in energy. Fundamentally, I hang out with some energy traders that just trade crude and the physical and only, right, or proxies of it in oil and gas. And there's a lot of reason to be fundamentally bearish crude, but it is not falling, right? Inflation expectations, at least from my perspective, and the whole commodity run, you can see it in many, many, many different metals and grains and such. It is supported. It's also a nice hedge to be in energy. And energy outperformed the first quarter, even above tech. It was at the bottom of the barrel last year. Tech was number one. First quarter, it was number one. Tech was at the bottom of the barrel. Now they're kind of doing this rotation and zig and zag. But yeah, I still like energy for whole of 2021. So
Me
this
too.
still has not, it just did a huge run, right? literally 100 points off the negative print back in 2020, and now it's just been digesting. Looks ready. It looks very firm. Actually, it worries me that it can get too hot too fast, and then it becomes a big headwind.
Yeah.
But we need confirmation for that, and it's we need a little bit more time for that as well. But
Is
yeah, the
that
catalyst.
is
Well, it's
that
going
the
to be the
sector that
catalyst to
you're
bring
kind
the
of looking
market.
at? Sorry?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear. I said what you like, your sea of catalyst for a pullback besides seasonality. What else are you looking for potential triggers for weakness in the market?
I'm really thinking that obviously with the vaccine news and those sorts of things, there can be like some other triggers from, an economic stance, right? Um, Thinking that if we get a bit of a push, then reopening and all that sort of stuff, that can actually maybe take away a little bit from the market too, at least from the retail side of things, if there's um, less volume, less liquidity that we've in comparison to what we've been seeing more recently. Uh, Obviously 2020 was an exception. Anyone that's traded prior to 2019 would know that, right? Like it was kind of
But a lot of new
exceptional.
traders don't know that.
Yes, and that's
And
what.
they don't know that their investment in Tesla and ARK, and a lot of the crypto names, that have been in distribution solidly the past month are really duration trades, meaning this yield spike and our steepening of the yield curve is a big proxy on tech weakness. So if we get a little bit higher, we can get some weakness in tech, and sometimes they don't understand that they're really correlated. So they're
Yeah,
new.
to one another.
Yeah,
And
they're really new. So how do
I'm
you how
trying
do
to
you
kind of grow my knowledge in that space too with volatility. So one of my colleagues, he's building a sentiment app. It's a sentiment web app to kind of compete with sentiment trader. Sorry, sentiment trader, but it's great. And he's a quant analyst on our floor, so he does all the sort of hedging, and we trade mostly delta hedging on our trade floor for all the financial power options that we do, or gas options. It's a power and gas trade floor. We don't really do too much crude, but I'm really starting to look into that side of things. Like I always check the volatility index. Interest rates have a huge factor to how the market's going to trade and how it'll continue to trade. And it's kind of the question right now is this going to be a correction, or is it going to be an actual drop, right? And I'm kind of thinking, even though with interest rates the way that they are right now, I still think that we could just maybe see a shorter term correction. And the reason why I say that is because things ran up so fast. They've also started coming down really fast. And this is for more of the growth stocks. So whether it be Tesla, all those EV names, cannabis names,
Yeah.
um,
All the
uh,
speculative sectors really got
yes,
hit. The SPACs, yes, the whole bunch of highly speculative, in many cases, no dividends, some are no earnings.
yeah,
You know,
I know. It's like they have nothing.
no,
Some of them, like PCIB's never even made a car. I'm like, they don't even produce cars yet. I'm like, but
no, some of that froth came out of the market, and well, it should have. But now, that's the area of maybe renewed speculation. But big tech is definitely shining with stellar earnings, and I do mean Apple was perfect, and yet they still softened, and that was
yeah.
I still contend that's post FOMC. Whenever we oftentimes have a short term risk off market reaction to a Fed announcement and a Powell presser. I wrote about it yesterday. Like, I'm expecting this. And next week, let's see where the euro is, because it also spikes higher and then reverses the next week, which has a lot to do with the dollar, which, can have a little bit of a headwind there on the commodity run, but not as much. So it's, for me, we're at inflection point, but no confirmation, zero. So it's going to be I think 2 more weeks, and we'll see if this is going
I
to
think
be.
so too. I'm kind of
Yeah.
aiming between that 2 to 3 week mark. And that's around the time we'll start seeing some more earnings coming out for some more consumer names and some more of those retail names, right? So
Yep.
that should really have a big impact on how the market reacts, and whether or not it wants to fully correct itself and get back to a healthy level, right? So you want the market to be healthy. I think the issue right now is I've been working extra harder. I'm not going to lie, right? So like 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, I was like, okay, well, I'm starting to sell some of my Facebook. I'm starting to sell some of my tech. Okay, well, what now? And it took me probably 10 hours. And I was like, okay, well, I like XLV, right? I like the healthcare stocks for this week. So I went long healthcare that week. It worked out well. Then I was like, okay, well now I like consumers, like these consumer names are reporting. Coke had great earnings. Perfect. And then this week I'm like, okay, let's go back into tech, right? Like tech looks okay, but let's use banks as a hedge. So, and that worked well, and crude worked well. But I think these next 2 to 3 weeks will be like a deciding factor for how the rest of the market's going to run, because these growth stocks have come down so much.
25 to 40%. Yeah.
Yes, and
Biotech too.
XBI, yeah. So all the
Yep.
biotech, and I actually have a video on XBI's chart from a few weeks back that I probably should have posted to Twitter. Probably could have saved people some money, but that was a really, really bearish weekly, monthly chart. XBI was a spinning top on its monthly, and you can see how it's come all the way down, right? But the question is there still more room for downside? And I think yes, and that's kind of bold of me to say that, but I mean, like cannabis names, for instance, and I'm really familiar with these names. Like, you keep in mind, I've been trading ACB,
Yep.
CGC. I've been trading these forever, right? Like for a long time, like even when they were penny stocks. My first purchase of CGC was at like $2, right? So I know how they trade, and I've seen their seasonalities, because I try seeing how things are going to have a season. So with EV, it's kind of hard to say what their season is, because it's so new, it's fresh, right? So I know with cannabis, they tend to run in the summer months, is what I've found, and they tend to sell off very heavily on their earnings, right? Like any chart you pull up, that's when they've sold off the most. That last surge that we had. So I'm just kind of stuck in that loop right now, where I'm trying to decide, and I think in the next 2 weeks I'll have probably a more defined conviction on what I want to do, in terms of, okay, well, is this the bottom for these cannabis names? Is this the bottom for these EV names, or do they still have some room for the downside? Because technically speaking, their charts do have more room to the downside. There's still a little gap to fill on all of those cannabis names, all of the EV names. It's just the question of, well, earnings is one thing, right? We have I think Neo reporting
Yep.
today. Yeah.
Yep.
And
McDonald's, Amazon tonight, all that.
yeah, those are the big ones. And that's kind of the question that that's the question I still have unanswered. I do think that they're going to pull back a bit more, but I want a little bit more confirmation, because it will heavily depend on how SPY does at these all-time highs, right? So I went into this week thinking we're going to hit all-time highs. Like, for sure, we're going to break to all-time highs this week. It has to be the week, because tech is running. And I've been telling my group 2 or 3 weeks ago, because they kept saying SPY is going to push to 420. I'm like, not yet. It'll push. It's going to have 2 inside weeks, which is what it did, right? We had those inside weeks. We had the kind of flat week where it's one day green, one day red, and we trade the volatility. But I'm like, I really wanted to push towards the end of the week, because you want SPY to push as close to these large cap tech names reporting as possible. You don't want it to be uncorrelated. You want them to be correlated, because if you were trading back in January, February, even, tech names weren't really that correlated to the SPY. They were kind of uncorrelated. And I have some friends that are, hedge fund managers that were reaching out to me like, Izzy, how come these tech names are not running with all these other names, right? And that was kind of one of the first time in a while, if you played this massive tech run since 2016, that it was uncorrelated to the SPY, right? So I
Because
really wanted them to align.
we had a big yield steepener, and it was very much a duration trade. They know that. They should know that. But what's your time frame for trading? I mean, are you typically in a trade for a few weeks, a few months? What is your preferred time frame for holding?
I trade everything. It really depends. I day trade, I trade intraday, I swing trade. But if I'm swing trading a sector, that I have to have really strong conviction to really swing trade a sector. So if I'm doing something like crude, I did swing crude for 4 months. So I was kind of in and out, trying to avoid the ex-dividend dates and any sort of setbacks, earnings, things like that. But I usually will go long leaps. So whether I'm buying stock, right, I'll have my stock XOM at like $35 or something like that. I try to buy things as low as possible from that downside. That way I have that hedge, and then I could trade the options however I want for, if it's running to the upside, whether I'm long calls or want to take my profits and start writing calls or whatever it is I want to do. I still have my core position. So I'm kind of writing that one out into the year. Same with Bank of America, same with Delta. I've already gone long into 2022 and 2021 when I was seeing all those the flow activity coming in. But it really depends on the name. If it's something like a biotech small cap plays, because I do swing trade those a lot too. Those are more so maybe a few weeks to a few months. I'll wait for the chart to really bottom out because sometimes
How
those can
about
take a
small
while.
caps right now? Are you, those are event, yeah, biotech is event driven and also speculative. But how about small caps right now? Are you bullish or bearish for the next few weeks?
I've been bullish for the last 2 weeks when I saw a shift out of large cap. Because I a lot of people in my Discord, and I just created my Discord last year. Were like, Izzy, like, why aren't we trading any more small caps? Like, why are you only looking at large cap stocks? It's like, well, it's the seasonality of it. The trend is our friend in large caps, so why would we trade small caps, right? It's like everything has its time to shine. Small caps have been shining the last few weeks, but I still think XBI is a little bit bearish on its monthly chart. So I don't think that it's quite bottomed out yet. I'll trade the trend when it's my friend, right? Like that's why I'm thinking right now with tech, the trend is still in. It's not, that's why I don't think we see a massive sell-off just yet or anything like that.
Do you
Um,
have any particular like definition of trend? Like I have a very specific one on a weekly chart, a 10-week moving average. It's above is bullish, below is bearish. I mean, in the most simplest terms, for those who aren't, looking like I am in front of the market every single day and, examining why something's moving, what across multiple time frames and all the correlations, and divergences related to it. Okay, that's noisy. In my mind, it makes me higher conviction. But the point is, above 10-week moving average on a weekly is bullish, below is bearish. Do you have any particular, simple technical, um, vehicle to kind of say it's in trend? It hasn't broken trend.
yeah, depending on the time frame I'm using. So with something like XOM, I had all my weekly and monthly levels kind of on there, and I was playing it into that investor's day, and that's the day it kind of sold off. But I'll definitely look at the support resistance wherever it's kind of hitting on that top max. And then I have this strategy called a cross and bleed. So I look for averages and unique averages, not averages anyone else uses. I make up my own because I want to trade against the algos, right? So I'll see if they cross over and if they start to bleed down, kind of like what Tesla did. So Tesla had the cross and bleed happen. I posted a video on it on Twitter 2 3 weeks ago for the cross and bleed, and it played out perfectly. Like it hit that top level and it crossed, and now it's bleeding down. So I did the same thing with XOM. XOM hit my top pivot level, and I was waiting for it to set up into that cross and bleed. But a lot of it also had to do with wanting to exit out and go back and go into tech names because tech was starting to bottom out. So it just depends on how I'm seeing a rotation and if I'm seeing a rotation coming up. Um, but it's mostly based on support and resistance levels. And
So not any particular time frame, daily or weekly or
I
other.
have a strategy. If it depends if I'm swinging or day trading, but usually if I'm swing trading something, I'll always look for a weekly gap open up. And you'll hear me say that a lot on Twitter, like gap opened above wick or something like that, which means it still has that momentum that it's breaking up over its previous week's close, right? And that to me is bullish. That to me is
Oh God, yes.
this
I do scans just for weekly gaps up and down because
and
they're
down. Yeah,
so,
that's
and
my
when
style.
and then when they fill, they're also very bullish when they, reverse and fill and move higher. So it's definitely, I love those. Yeah.
And volume, of course, volume's like a huge driver for me, right? If I'm seeing, it's funny when everyone was like SPY is gonna crash, it's running on low volume. I'm like, that has nothing to do with it. Running on low volume means it's going to keep running because it doesn't have any pressure to push it down, right? So
It
it's
also
like
has the algos as support, but and lots of liquidity
exactly.
in the system. But I don't even bother with that as well. I mean, I obviously have to look at levels for targets for customers for who trade that on different time frames. But for me, it's sector rotation. So I've got a list of 58 in the safety, that has just been phenomenal for months and months and months as a alternative to tech, whether it be big tech or mid cap, or the languishing biotech SPACs, EV, cannabis, ARC, Teslas of the world, which are just sitting there and gyrating sideways, and kind of frustratingly. The Bitcoin proxies, obviously, that was a fabulous short from the coin IPO, and they just bounced into resistance and they're fading again. But the stuff that is just boring anti-momentum, not the momentum plays that are, holding down, but the safety plays have been holding up beautifully. Boring aerospace, boring retail, boring staples, boring consumer, boring energy. Well, okay, energy's different. It's not been boring. It's been sideways and gripping as it relates to the draws and, oh no, that was wrong. The analysts, oh no, that was wrong. There's been so much uh, cheekiness in the energy move in the past, basically 2 months. It has not decisively broken out or broken down because it had an outsized move. I mean, it was impressive.
Yeah,
So
just like tech did, right? Like that outside candle with Facebook. I was like, oh my, like Facebook just looked great.
yeah, the market, this was so something I do with earnings, and I don't know how close you do with earnings, but I go over big names, of course. 180 reported this week. It's overwhelming to go through everything, but I pick out obviously what's of most interest to market, you know, interest, but also client portfolios and big tech. It was kind of really obvious. Every single analyst was aligned that Apple was going to beat beautifully, and they did. They were perfect, and they still softened because again, this for me is a yield proxy. They are trading like long duration. We had a yield spike. So it's soft for a day after FOMC, totally expected. The Facebook analysts had no idea. They were all over the map. But the market, you saw how Facebook was trading prior to the earnings beautifully. Like it was a gorgeous shallow pullback and it looked totally ready to scoop and shoot higher. I had no edge and I have no edge in earnings ever. So this, is the market. Sometimes you can kind of see what's going to happen. And other times, Pins was a fabulous report and they sold off viciously. I don't even like trading earnings, but I like very much to see to kind of see what the market's going to do. And the earnings right now have been stellar, especially for small cap names, but big cap, large cap as well. So Amazon, I haven't even looked how they're doing. Neo, I haven't even looked because we've been chatting and
I know. I was like, oh, it's
I was
Amazon
like,
earnings day.
I
was
care.
like,
I actually
oh.
care about McDonald's. I mean, that's been one of my plays in the safety, which means it doesn't move like Jagger, but it is such a safe trade, meaning it has been just grinding higher without any fanfare. Nobody's looking at it. It's stunning trend trade. And breaking out a monthly and all that kind of stuff, but nobody's talking about McDonald's, and I hope they don't. So
That's like Kroger for me.
yeah,
I went
Kroger,
long
the
Kroger
grocery.
after the day after earnings, and I was like, no, what? I don't even think anyone's trading Kroger, and
So the
that was another hedge of
boring.
mine, right? It was just
Yep.
running up when everything was crashing. So
So to me, the names of safety plays are the ones that unfortunately don't necessarily always have a really good options market. And they're not a big ATR, average true range is kind of small. They don't move like momentum plays. But in this market, when there's been so much digestion, they've been fabulous. So the Mohawks and plays on housing stocks. You look at a weekly chart, and they are just building materials and housing and aeros. Besides Boeing, Boeing never counts because it's so volatile. It's so volatile. It has so much, scrutiny, and it's just too bloody big, and it's a momentum play. But otherwise, it's been a fabulous, boring uh, sector rotation to safety. And big tech now has done extremely well. We'll see how they do next week. Now that we're out of that wormhole. So I'm with you. I think we need another few weeks to see if we're going to get a big burst, if you will, because we can go higher or lower on a dime, like we
yeah,
are.
I think either way, the volatility is going to be, it's going to be big, whether it's up or down. I do think we still go up a little bit more, but I'm just kind of trying to play it play by play. So I haven't been swing trading as much as I normally would. And technically speaking, and seasonality speaking, small caps usually run up in summer months. So it wouldn't surprise me that it doesn't surprise me that it does surprise me that that monthly XBI chart looks like that, because that run up was insane in 2020 with COVID plays. But
Yeah.
um, wouldn't surprise me one bit to see them pull back a little bit more before they kind of bottom off and then start to move, because especially the timing of it right now, if we see large cap tech start to sell off in a few weeks, which I mean, that's healthy, right? Like look how much
Rotation
they're up, right? Like we need that. So you
and
don't want things to
energy
keep running like that.
and energy seasonality into summer too, higher
Exactly. Like
gasoline.
energy runs usually end of April into May. Like that's
Yeah.
kind of that whole rotation. I think it would make a better buying opportunity for everyone, right? So like I'm actually really looking forward to seeing a small correction, which I know sounds
No,
not, most people don't want that, but I feel like I
get it
always
over
tell
with.
people I'm not bullish, I'm not bearish, I'm a trader, right? So I'll trade what's in front of me, I'll trade the trend. I don't have any feeling towards any sort of stock or company. It's all neutral for me. It's what I'm seeing happen, right? So I'm still kind of thinking we see that slight sell-off for small caps. I don't think they're quite ready yet. Go do yourself a favor and pull up that monthly XBI chart and you'll have an idea why, right? And then come end of summer, I think we start seeing them run up again, and maybe we'll see a healthier market, and then it'll be like August, and they'll be like, okay, psych, never mind, right? And
Yeah.
we'll see another correction. So
Well, we have the benefit of looking and keeping an open mind, so that's a good thing. So when you said you opened up a Discord channel last year, and you have your Twitter stream, where else, and you post some thoughts on your website. Where else are you kind of engaging?
a little bit in the Benzinga Pro Chat, I was contributing in there quite a bit. Not as much recently because I'm just overwhelmed, I guess, with the amount
So
of,
is that when you say the Benzinga Pro Chat, you're a contributor or trading room moderator or participant? Like,
participant, but they've asked me to have my own room in there to be a
yeah.
moderator, but it's just the workload is I'm trying to be I've had a hard time saying no, I guess, to in
Oh,
general. I have a hard time saying no, right? Because I'm always like, okay, yeah, like let's, but then I'm just trying to weigh out my, my own time and energy. And I've been finding myself kind of
Warren
overworking
Buffett.
myself.
Warren Buffett says it best. He goes, "I am successful because I say no a lot."
Yeah, and that's what that's one of my weaknesses. I'm very bad at saying no.
I like that. I'm successful because I say no a lot.
I love that. I'm gonna write that down. I need to write that down because
All right.
so yeah, more recently, I mean I still kind of will post some things in there, but mostly on Twitter. Not as much recently on Twitter because I've started my blog. My blog is pretty new. It's only a few weeks
Ah,
old.
okay.
So
Well,
and I think it's just
congrats.
an easier way for me to put out my thoughts and
Yeah.
a lot more fun. I went to school for journalism, so I like to write, right? So I've kind of always been the person that likes to write, but I just started up my YouTube channel a few weeks ago. So
Okay.
I'm going to start doing some videos on there. Make sure you guys follow me on YouTube.
Are you on TikTok? I mean,
I'm not. And everyone's like, Izzy, get a TikTok. You would do
oh,
so
see,
great on there. But it's like,
this is
I don't
not my
know.
age. Yeah.
Are you on TikTok?
Oh God, no. I've been doing this forever, and I just got a YouTube channel because my director of marketing said you need a YouTube channel. But I barely contribute the trading insights stuff that I do all day with clients. It's more the macro and the special presentations and this kind of, kind of interview format, which to me is I want to create a community, and I want to lift up also and inspire women by showcasing women who are doing this. When you talk about Benzinga, I think, it's got some great products there, but it's all men. Name any woman who is, involved in front of the camera at Benzinga. They need to step it up. I know it's not maybe beneficial for you, maybe it will be, but you definitely, they have a fabulous platform and no women.
Yeah, I've even noticed even with their
Missing the boat they are. They're just excluding not only the 50% of the audience, if you will, but more women signed up for trading accounts in the last year than men.
yeah, I could see that. I definitely see that because
Dr.
I've
Schwab
been
said,
getting a lot of female followers, a lot more. I've noticed it. And on
yeah.
International Women's Day, I put out a post, where are the females that are following me? Like, can you leave a comment? Tell me about yourself. Like, where do you live? How long have you been trading for? Like, I'm always interested, right? Because I feel like I've always worked in a male dominated industry. I don't know why. I've
Energy and
always been the
trading.
only girl.
Well,
Yeah.
energy and trading. That's like,
Energy trading and even tech sales. I was the only
yeah,
girl.
yeah.
And I would actually even have, there were, depending on what cultures and different backgrounds of specific people, they don't like dealing with women. They think that women can't sell, or they're not knowledgeable enough about even when I was going in to get my new computer, right? I was like, I'm the only girl in there, and everyone's just like, okay,
It's
like, what do you?
changing though. It is changing. And you said that you see more women. Are they in your Discord, or like how do you?
Yeah, so my Discord has been huge for that. So there's a
Okay.
few reasons why I open up my Discord, and that's honestly where I'm putting the majority of my energy into recently, because that's my community. I can control how it is in there, right? And
Yes.
everyone always tells me like, Izzy, your community is so kind, everyone's so respectful. I don't tolerate any room for nonsense in there, right? Like, it has to be professional. Everyone has to respect each other. There's no swearing, there's no
I run a
any sort
family
of.
channel too. And
Exactly,
this
right?
is
I
very
want.
important to me because I want women to feel comfortable and not ignored, talked over, or belittled. And I definitely, in fact, when I started this, saying Lucci and I were talking about this, he's like, why aren't more women in my trading room? And I said, maybe you don't respect them. I mean, not you, like
But
specifically,
the
but
but
the
the
room,
group,
the
right?
culture.
Yeah.
And I love Wall Street Jesus options and the whole
Oh,
thing.
I
I
love
know
Wall Street Jesus. He's
I know
awesome.
these two guys for like for a long time. I love the quality of context and also just the vibe. But the room is definitely bravado, right?
Yes, and probably very male dominated. Whereas my room, you can tell, is run by a female. Like, it's very,
Yes.
very obvious that it's run by a female. It's very organized, right? It's very structured. Maybe I have a bit of OCD, I don't know, but I like keeping it fun, but I like keeping it friendly. And I have a mental health room in there that apparently no one else has. I'm like, what? How do people not have a mental health room? Like, so people, if they're feeling down one day, they can go in there and they can talk to someone, or just kind of let it out, right? But I have a thing where there's no negative energy. If you had a bad trade, you don't talk about your bad trade. You ask others how their day went, right? So it's like, you don't want to inflict that, because it becomes contagious, right?
Yeah.
And I don't I'm not really in any other discords. I can't really speak of any other discords, but I've seen a few, right? And it's like, well, why would anyone want to be in a room of people just complaining, right? Like, that's just bad energy, and you don't want that. So I really try keeping, your mindset has to be positive, regardless of, how your day went. Sit back and learn from it, right? Like, what were some lessons that you can take away from today? And rather than venting to me about it, ask me for help. Like, it's all about your approach, right? And I think that that's what really makes a really solid community. And I love my community, and my community is, I'm not there for numbers or anything like that. It's closed off. It's not like, I'm all about quality over quantity. I don't want an overflow. I really want to make it personable, and I'm only one person. So it's not like I have all the hours in the day to unfortunately talk to everyone, but I definitely try, right? And I definitely try to reach out to people. And more so from just being a human. Like, I'm a human first before I'm a trader, right?
So are you trading when you said you were in energy trading before? Are you still doing energy trading like for a prop trading firm or for a family office, or are you being
Yeah,
just
so
for yourself?
that's another balance. Like, I'm having some difficulty trying to balance everything, and I think
So
my issue is,
what is the professional trading that you're doing? Just
so I work in power trading, so physical power and gas. I'm on the gas desk though, so we're trading and supplying transmission to the western states. So California, or like that entire region is where we're kind of trading with other power companies. We've got a plant out in Washington, and we're buying and selling. We're a big buyer seller with other power companies in that area, and we're flowing clean power and emission trading and all that sort of stuff. So
how long have you been doing that?
I've been in energy trading for 7 years now, but three years on the trading desk. I was in operations before, so I did a lot of the market ops, confirming all the trades and making sure that there was no room for errors, or creating a lot of queries. So I have a little bit of a coding background too, and I think that really helps with trading in general. That's why I always think, like, my logic for when you asked about moving
Give
averages.
then. Yeah.
Yes, why I look at moving averages, but trust me, I'm not looking at what everyone else is looking at. So I made a joke in my blog this week that XOM failed the 50 day, and I bet you everyone's bearish, but it didn't fail the 75 day. And I bet you nobody looks at the 75 day, but I do, right? So that's why I was bullish. So lots of experience from there really translates into my trading, which is nice. And trust me, there I'm definitely one of the only females. It was very intimidating when I first started because I was a 24-year-old girl, and all males, and it's the second largest trading floor in Calgary where I am here. So a really big trading floor. And commodity trading is a little bit different than equity trading, but I have worked for funds. I worked for a private fund before working there. That was a lot smaller, a lot more personable, like kind of like one guy, one accountant sort of thing. Whereas this was, at first, I definitely was quite shy, a little bit intimidated, right, to even apply to the desk. And it's funny because I never applied for my trading role. I had the manager of that desk approach me and say, Izzy, like, why have you not applied? And keep in mind, no one at work knows about my trading. They don't know about this.
Oh, no way.
So I've never even opened up publicly about it. I've never even and then, over the summer months when we were in quarantine, my boss had messaged me and said, Izzy, I found your Twitter. And I was like, oh, oh no, and he's like, oh, this is great. This is fabulous. Like, why are you not and then we talk a bit more trades, but I feel like it kind of, not that I'm not respected at work. I am, of course, right. In my workplace, it's definitely changing. But I feel like my opinion was maybe a bit more valid. My voice was a little bit more heard. It's like, I feel like women do have to work harder to earn respect, and it's kind of sad, right? And I don't think we've completely shifted out of that yet.
Oh, not even close. I started, a Voice of Women FinTwit list so that when I come across women in trading and finance, I can add them to this list and I make that one publicly available because it's been hard to find others. And like you said, you're working a full-time, energy trading desk. And you're doing this trading and blogging and Discord on
I'm
the
streaming
side.
all day long, right? Like I'm streaming all day. So it's like I'm live trading all day and work. It's like it's a lot. It's quite overwhelming. I honestly probably work like 18 hours a day, hardly any time for sleep. So I agree with what you said earlier. I sometimes saying no is not a bad thing. I think if I start saying no a little bit more now, it's actually a benefit for everyone else because the biggest and most important thing is your health, right? If you're not healthy, how are you going to help anyone if you can't even help yourself, right? So I've been trying to focus a lot more on my mental health. And like you had said with females having a voice, I think one of the biggest accomplishments of my Discord, and I was always one of those people that was against chat rooms. Like I always kind of was like, no, like I don't like that, right? But I saw a lot of Discords opening up, a lot of Slack servers, and it was kind of concerning for me because I didn't want new traders jumping into trades that they don't know about. So my Discord is a learning Discord, right? It was to teach people on technical analysis, how to look at SEC filings, how to understand balance sheets, just very basic things, right? But at least knowing what they're buying, right? And where they're buying it and why they're buying it, like kind of getting people a little bit more familiar with with the actual trade that they're taking on and knowing their risk. Because I think a lot of people jump into the markets and they don't understand their risk, right?
No, that's how they learn.
Yeah, well, I mean, sometimes learning the hard way is
The
better.
hard way.
Yeah, sometimes you have to learn the hard way. But I think the biggest takeaway from my Discord was like, of course, it was the learning aspect of it, but the females in there, they feel way more comfortable in there. And I have a few
100%.
moms in there. I've got females of all ages in there, whether they're seniors. I have seniors in my room. I've got, young kids in high school. There's so many different types of people. And I have a lot of mothers in there, single mothers in there, a ton of single mothers in my room. And, it's just fascinating how, and I get like emails that make me want to cry sometimes, right? Because it's like, Izzy, you really helped me. I'm a single mom, and you really give me hope, and your voice is respected when you are talking. People are listening, and there's a mom in my room that always tells me, you've given my daughter hope. She's in high school. She's kind of a nerdier girl, but you've really made her a lot more confident because you get on the mic and she hears you speak, and she's like, wow, like she's confident, so I can be
Young
too.
girls need to see women as as leaders and as confident and as capable, but they need to see what they can be. So this is definitely why I do this series. I mean, I
I
really
love
think this
this,
is
by the way. This is
cool.
great.
And
I
it,
love this.
it doesn't even have to be a big thing. For me, it is my part of inspiring other women to get into this space. I mean, it's not just income inequality that we suffer from, female male. It's wealth inequality is a much, much, much wider gap. So, in my opinion, obviously, coming into this space of trading and finance, because I definitely bridge the gap between institutional and retail, macro and micro. Um, to me, this is where it's at, is just creating an environment where people can be themselves. And I think more women who are entering trader education, whether free or for fee, are serving a bigger kind of role of being an example. So thank you for stepping up. I mean, not just as the
Thank you.
oldest, sibling and being a good, responsible mentor, but also in this trading space. Where can folks find you? Because we're already at 5 o'clock and I want to make sure I don't forget
Yes,
to do this.
for sure on my Twitter, and then
All
I've got
right.
my website there too.
All right. So
Um,
yes, we definitely have your website, and it's msizztrades.com, and
that's
you're the
right.
same. It's the same Twitter handle, right?
Yeah, same. Well, my Twitter handle is underscore miss underscore Izzy. So underscore MS underscore IZZY. That's the Twitter handle. And you can always contact me if you have a question. My email is on the site. There's a contact form on there too.
Yeah. And you
Probably
also have
better than, pardon?
you have a YouTube channel as well.
I do
So
have a YouTube channel as well. YouTube's on my website too. YouTube, I'm quite new. There's only 3 videos. It's only been about a week and a half, but almost 2,000 subscribers. So I'm pretty proud, right? It's like
see,
I
you got
haven't
the
really posted content yet. So I'm quite excited to start doing that. I just got my brand new computer yesterday, so I'll be streaming a lot more. You'll be hearing me a lot more, probably more than tweeting. So I'm excited for that new journey.
All
Um,
right. Well, and when you're back at the Benzinga Pro, make sure to recommend to these guys that they need more women, because women can be what they can see, and right now that's all you see, a sea of men over there. So
Yeah,
that's my
I will for sure.
soapbox.
I know Jason. I know Jason personally, so I'll definitely have a talk with him. I know he definitely wants to get women out there. They're like the females that I work with over there that do a lot of their small cap conferences. Their majority are female. So there is a good female group, but I feel like they're behind the camera, right? So definitely, I think they would benefit from having someone in front of that camera. Um,
100%.
yeah,
100%.
but
And
this was great.
oh, thank you so much. I will
Thank
be
you.
posting this on my YouTube channel, LaDuc Trading, and you will find this recording. Please also subscribe and say thank you, thumbs up, whatever it is that you're supposed to do, and save for these promotional things. Because unlike you, selling is not my comfort zone. I like to analyze and, in my quiet little space here, and support clients very differently, just not out loud. So I'm very humbled to be able to learn how other women are also ex- getting their voice, but also sharing their voice to a wider audience. And I'm in full support of it. So thank you again. And thank you for attending, folks. I really appreciate your
Thank you,
time.
Samantha.
And I will wish everyone a great rest of the trading week. Now let's go see what Amazon did. All right.
All
Good
right.
night,
Thank you
everyone.
so much, Sam. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.